History remembers them as monsters, creatures of the abyss, symbols of pure anarchy. But in the violent chaos of the high seas, these outcasts forged a society more radical and egalitarian than any kingdom on earth. This wasn't a world of romantic adventure, it was a brutal, floating purgatory. To survive, the lawless had to create their own law, a dark covenant written not in ink, but in blood and desperation. This is the story of the Pirate Code. An ephemeral constitution for a republic of thieves, a paradox that challenges our very definition of civilization. The Golden Age of Piracy was born from the cruelty of empires. Naval discipline was savage, merchant pay was a pittance. Men were pressed into a life of misery and looked to the black flag not for riches, but for freedom. But freedom without rules is simply chaos. A ship full of desperate, armed men, adrift for months, is a powder keg waiting for a spark. The greatest threats were not the Spanish galleons or the Royal Navy patrols. They were mutiny, greed, and the slow poison of distrust that could tear a crew apart from the inside. Order had to be imposed. Not from the top down, by a tyrant king or a flogging captain, but from the bottom up. A social contract was necessary for survival. Before a single prize was taken, before the anchor was even weighed, the crew would gather. Here, in this floating world between heaven and hell, they would draft their laws. These were the Articles of Agreement. Each ship had its own version, a unique charter for their fleeting enterprise, tailored to the temperament of its crew. To join the Brotherhood was to swear an oath upon whatever was held sacred, a Bible, a crossed pistol, a human skull. To break this oath was to invite a fate far worse than death. Consider the Code of Bartholomew Black Bart Roberts, one of the most successful pirates in history. His articles were a masterclass in criminal governance, a blueprint for organized rebellion. His rules were clear: no gambling with cards or dice. Lights out at 8 o'clock. And any man who kept a secret from the company would be marooned. This wasn't mere discipline, it was a strategy. It ensured the crew was sober, alert, and united, ready for battle at a moment's notice. The most revolutionary article, however, was political. It declared a principle utterly alien to the world they had fled: democracy. Every man had a vote in the affairs of the moment. They elected their own captain, and, more importantly, they could depose him by a majority vote. The captain was not a king. He was a battlefield commander, granted absolute authority only in the heat of combat. In all other matters, he was just another vote. This radical equality extended to the most crucial aspect of their lives, the plunder. The code dictated a precise, and surprisingly fair, division of all spoils. The captain and quartermaster might receive a double share, the gunners perhaps a share and a half. But every man, from the oldest salt to the youngest powder monkey, was guaranteed his portion. This was not just about wealth, it was about dignity. On a naval vessel, a common sailor would never see a fraction of the prize money. On a pirate ship, he was a shareholder. But with rights came responsibilities. And with law came punishment. The pirate code was not a suggestion, it was an ironclad contract. Theft within the crew was the ultimate sin. To steal from a brother pirate was to betray the very foundation of their society. The penalty was swift and absolute. They would be marooned. Left on a desolate island with a single flask of water, a pistol, and 1 measure of powder. A slow, lonely death sentence. Cowardice in battle was met with equal severity. A man who failed to stand by his comrades could be executed on the spot, or face the horrifying ritual of keelhauling. This brutal system wasn't arbitrary cruelty. It was a calculated deterrent, a necessary horror to maintain cohesion when facing the guns of an empire. Bringing a woman aboard disguised was another capital crime. The Articles of Captain John Phillips stated such an offender would be put to death, a harsh rule designed to prevent jealousy and conflict. Desertion was, of course, unthinkable. To abandon the company was to break the sacred oath, and any pirate found to have deserted would be shown no mercy. Yet, amid this savagery, there existed a concept so progressive it was virtually unknown in the civilized world, a system of social insurance. Before the plunder was divided, a portion was set aside for a common fund. This fund served as compensation for any man injured in the line of duty. The loss of a right arm was worth 600 pieces of 8. The loss of an eye, 100 pieces. A crude but effective system of workers' compensation, centuries ahead of its time. This wasn't charity, it was a pragmatic investment. It ensured that every man would fight with maximum ferocity, knowing his future was secure even if he was maimed. These men, condemned by society, had created a welfare state in miniature. They cared for their own, because no one else would. The central figure in upholding this strange society was not the captain. It was the quartermaster. Elected by the crew, the quartermaster was their advocate, the guardian of the Articles. He represented the will of the people against the authority of the captain. He led the boarding party, ensuring he was first to the prize. He was entrusted to divide the loot and rations fairly, making him arguably the most trusted man on the ship. The quartermaster was the judge in most disputes, the enforcer of discipline for minor infractions. He was the balance of power, the check against the captain's potential tyranny. This two-party system, the captain for war, the quartermaster for peace, was a sophisticated political structure. It was designed to prevent the concentration of power that they had all suffered under before. The code was a living document. It was debated, amended, and invoked in the daily life of the ship. It was the ghost at every feast, the judge at every trial. Imagine a dispute over a stolen ring. Not the captain, but the quartermaster would hear the case. Witnesses would be called, and the verdict delivered according to the agreed-upon articles. Or consider the vote to attack a heavily armed convoy. The captain would argue for the prize, the cautious would argue for their lives. The fate of all would be decided by a simple show of hands. This was not mob rule. It was a deliberative process, a council of outlaws deciding their own destiny, moment by moment. Even the iconic symbols of piracy were sometimes dictated by the code. The Jolly Roger flag was not just for intimidation, it was a formal declaration, an offer of terms. To fly the black flag was to offer quarter if the victim surrendered without a fight. To raise the red flag, however, was a promise of no quarter, a declaration of total war. The Golden Age of Piracy was brief, lasting little more than a generation. The empires they plagued eventually marshaled their forces and hunted them to extinction. The gallows at Port Royal and London claimed the men who had dared to create their own world. Their Republic of the Sea was dismantled, their articles burned, their story twisted into a caricature. But the code remains a haunting historical artifact. A testament to the idea that even in the deepest darkness, humanity seeks order, justice, and a voice. These villains, these cutthroats and thieves, practiced a form of radical democracy and social welfare that would not be seen on land for another 100 years. The Pirate Code is more than a list of rules for criminals. It is a profound and uncomfortable question posed to history: who, in the end, were the real savages?